Hello everyone, it's David from Automotive Press. I have the most fascinating and interesting video today because I am comparing two of my favorite SUVs from Toyota and Lexus. I have the Lexus GX beside me and Toyota 4RUNNER also beside me, and I own both of them, and we're going to do a full manufacturing and quality audit and comparison of these two vehicles. They are both built in Japan at the Tahara factory, which is one of the best factories in the world, so they should both be right up there in terms of quality control and manufacturing quality. But are there differences between the 4RUNNER and the Lexus GX? Well, we're about to find out. So follow me as we go through this interesting journey of comparing the external quality of the Lexus GX versus the Toyota 4RUNNER. Let's go. Welcome back. So I have a really interesting comparison of the quality audit between the Lexus GX right here and the Toyota 4RUNNER. Both built in Tahara factory in Japan. They should be almost equal in terms of manufacturing quality, but because one is a Lexus and one is a 4RUNNER, there could be some differences. So let's do my usual gap check to see if there are differences between the two. Let's start with the Lexus first. And I'm going to check both sides because some of you guys complain that I'm only checking one side. Well, actually, I always check both sides, but in the video, I only show one side. But today, I'll show you both sides. So right here, we have 2.9 millimeter on this side, and on this side, also 2.9 millimeter. Let's check over here as well, higher up. 3 millimeter on that side, and up here, 2.9. So it's pretty well identical, all four corners right here, and extremely good quality because you just cannot get a gap of less than 3 millimeters. It's almost impossible to find that in any modern cars. Let's check the 4RUNNER, which is built on the same factory in the same line. It's also very good. It's 3.0 millimeter here. Same thing, 3.0 and 3.0 and 3.0. So it's actually almost identical between the two. Tiny bit better on the Lexus, but not by very much. Now let's take a look at the fender to the door differences on both vehicles as well. So let's do a quick check on the GX first. Again, 3 millimeter here, 3 millimeter here, which is astonishing quality. And here, a bit wider at 3.2, 3.2, and then back to 2.9 actually, and 2.9. So extremely good quality. On this side, let's do a quick check on the other side to make sure that it's the same as the driver's side. So let's take a look here. 2.9 here, 2.9, 3.0. So both sides are, again, between 2.9 to 3 millimeter. That's the same for here, and the left and the right side of the fenders and the doors, which is really astonishing. You just cannot get that level of quality in any vehicle sold throughout the world. I just have not come across cars with less than 3 millimeter gap. Let's take a look at the 4RUNNER now. 3 millimeter also. A bit wider here. This is actually 4 millimeter. 4 millimeter on the door, and back to 3 millimeter and 3 millimeter. Not sure why this door just have a little bit more gap than that side or this side. Let's take a look at the other side as well. It should be pretty well identical, but let's double check. Yeah, 3 millimeter here, and yeah, 4 millimeter here, and back to 3 millimeter. So actually almost identical to the Lexus GX, but there's a little bit more gap between the front door and the rear door on the 4RUNNER side. But part of that might be because we have a gasket in here. There's a rubber gasket that runs from top to the bottom, which is not in the 4RUNNER, and therefore it could be fooling my eyes a little bit in terms of gap. It is definitely a little bit better on this side, but overall there are almost no differences between the two models. The two have literally identical body quality measurements. And also if you look at the panels like this, the Lexus side and the 4RUNNER side, if I walk slowly, you can tell the panel alignment is just perfect on both vehicles. There are absolutely no differences in terms of the level of the two panels here. And same thing over here is perfect. It's perfect here as well. And let's just check the hood alignment also. Yeah, pretty well perfect here. And what about the other side here? Also just about perfect. A little bit minor difference between here and here, but pretty well negligible. And on the Lexus side, it's maybe slightly better, I think. Once again, pretty minor differences. It is perfect on the GX, like the level here and the level here, all the way through. Oh my goodness. You actually think that these panels were built off the exact same sheet metal because it all lines up with absolutely zero difference in terms of the levelness, alignment, the gap. I mean, this is as perfect as the car will ever become. You cannot buy a car in this price range that has this level of quality. In fact, if you buy a car that's twice as much as this Lexus, or even a $500,000 car like a Rolls-Royce or something like that, you still will not get a gap or panel alignment as good as these two vehicles. These two vehicles are no doubt world-class in terms of manufacturing quality for all of the panels. They fit perfectly. There's zero tolerance for any difference. And for all intents and purposes, the 4Runner and the GX are pretty well identical. There's almost no difference. Just tiny bit of advantage for the GX, but we're talking about small, minor differences, and so I would consider them to be pretty identical. Now let's do a paint comparison between the two. Obviously, this one is metallic white, this is dark gray metallic, and therefore it's not a fair comparison. But in terms of general gloss of the paint, the pigmentation, the consistency of the paint of the two, honestly, I really cannot tell the difference. But the Lexus GX have a slightly better gloss because it has probably additional clear coat or thicker clear coat than this one. And that's why there's a little bit of difference. I'll measure the paint thickness in a minute here to see what the difference might be. But the 4Runner, even at this price range, has a superb paint job. The car is a bit dirty right now, but you can tell it's very consistent. Even the orange peel is very much at a minimum, and it looks fantastic from all angles. The GX looks even better, and this car is also a bit dirty too, but look at the shine here. Look at the gloss and the amount of clear coat. It's just perfect application of the paint, and from any angle, it looks absolutely fantastic. Once again, world-class paint job on both vehicles with slight advantage on the Lexus, only because Lexus has a slightly more expensive paint applied with the additional clear coat or thicker clear coat. So let's do a quick paint thickness check on these two vehicles to see if there are differences in that as well. So I now have the paint thickness gauge here, which measures the total amount of paint, which includes the clear coat and undercoat above the sheet metal. And thicker the better, obviously, for durability reasons. But for the most part, you want it to be between 100 to 180 microns. And most Toyota cars are kind of a bit thin in terms of paint thickness, usually between 100 to 120 because they're trying to lower the cost and also to reduce the amount of weight. So let's start with the 4Runner this time and measure the paint thickness of the hood first. 112, and in the front fender here, 103. So exactly what I expected in terms of thickness, because that's pretty well what I see in all Toyota models. Now let me reset this and check the hood of the Lexus GX. 151, that's quite a bit thicker than the other side. And what about the fender? 116, so a little bit thicker on the front fender, but quite a bit thicker in terms of front hood. Now let's go back and measure the door panel as well. Let's do the two door panels here. 105 on the front door. 102, so very consistent. And then the rear portion, 95.3. For some reason, this panel is a little bit thinner than the rest of it. It could be due to maybe some work that the dealer did when they were trying to remove some scratches that we had before, and maybe they removed too much of the clear coat. But let's take a look on the Lexus side and see what happens here. Okay, let's start with the driver's side. 131, so definitely thicker than the other side. 131 again, exactly the same. How perfect is that? And then the fender, 138. So all across the side of this vehicle, the GX has more paint than the 4Runner. And once again, it's likely because this is the optional metallic white paint called the Eminent Pearl. And I think this one has either extra layer of paint or extra layer of clear coat. So it obviously has more paint overall than the 4Runner. And so that's kind of expected. I'm gonna have to check another Lexus GX with a normal paint to see if there's a difference between the two. But typically speaking, the Lexus always have slightly thicker paint than equivalent Toyota model, so I'm not surprised by that. And I also was very impressed that paint thickness is very consistent here, 150, 130s over here, almost identical on all the side panels. And I'm glad that the hood is a little bit thicker as well, because that will allow the hood to withstand debris and rock chips and so forth. It'll just be better for overall paint protection if the paint is a little bit thicker on the hood. So I'm glad that I've seen that one. And the 4Runner is okay too. This is pretty well average. It's not thinner than any other Toyota products I've seen. It's pretty well standard in terms of thickness, except for this one section. So let me check the other side to see if this is just an anomaly or not. So let's measure this side on the 4Runner. 107, yeah, so this looks normal here. 111. So I think when we have some scratches here and we ask a detailer to remove it, they might have removed too much of it. Let's check over here. 100, and one more time here. 98. So it is definitely a little bit thinner here. So I expect that's not due to manufacturing quality issue, but it's to do with some kind of detailing job that we did after the fact. So the two paint jobs are actually excellent. I think the magnetic gray on this 4Runner looks great, but the imminent pearl on the Lexus GX looks absolutely wonderful. Now I did end up buying another Lexus GX, but that one is the beautiful nori green. So I can't wait to pick that up and compare the paint job again. But most importantly, the manufacturing quality of these two vehicles in terms of panel fit, the panel alignment, and also the paint job and the paint thickness are absolutely world-class. As you can see, the two vehicles have an amazing world-class manufacturing quality that is unbeatable by any standard. Even if you were to pay 2 or 3 times more money for a car, they will not be able to match the overall quality of these two vehicles, which are built by some of the best factory workers in Japan at the Tahara factory, where I have been many times, and I'm always impressed at that factory because that's where most of the Lexus are built. It's interesting to note that the 4Runner is one of the very few Toyota models that's still produced in Tahara factory, along with other Lexus models that are produced over there, and therefore you get basically a quality of the Lexus in the Toyota when you buy the 4Runner. So both of these vehicles may be old and outdated, but I love them both, and they both have advantage over many other modern vehicles because they have a proven powertrain in the form of a V6 or V8. And you know what? I'm going to keep them for as long as I can because these are dinosaurs perhaps, but they are also the superstars because you'll never find vehicles like this in terms of quality or long-term durability, and therefore they are like gems and diamonds to me because there's nothing else out there that are as good as Lexus GX or 4Runner. So I just finished the manufacturing quality audit of these two vehicles. I'm going to be doing more comparison of these two so that you can figure out whether you want to buy the 4Runner or the Lexus GX, assuming that the budget allows for buying something like the GX versus the 4Runner, because I think you guys also want to know what the differences are in terms of driving feel and character and the overall impression of the two vehicles. As a preview, all I can tell you is that there are a fair amount of differences in terms of driving character, not just because of the difference in the V8 versus the V6 or the transmission differences, but actual handling and the steering feel are quite different as well. But more on that later on. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you can give me a thumbs up and make some comments and subscribe, that would be truly appreciated. Until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.